Okay, I welcome you all with love and spiritual joy. And I also want to honor Richard Sachs, who isn't going to be here again today for personal reasons. Hopefully, he'll be back next week. So, but we're not forgetting him. Okay, we're putting a plug in for him that things will be better. So, we live in a very wild times and wild world, okay? And I'm not telling you anything new. So one way to begin approaching it is start with a little spiritual joy in our lives. And so dancing is one way to activate the spiritual joy. And then from that spiritual joy, it's like a bridge into kind of life. But it gives us a foundation of spiritual joy to rest on. So with that in mind, I'm going to invite you all to do a little dancing with me, and then we'll do a little bit of meditating, like a minute or two. And then I'm going to talk about a topic which is an interesting topic for our times, which is the rise of violence in kind of every direction in our lives. And what is it we can do about that? Okay, so let's start with dancing first. Okay? Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Let's focus on my eyes and we'll go into a little meditation. Yo. You slowly come out of meditation, and now we're going to look at a topic that's kind of awkward to talk about, and that's the idea of violence. And what is going on in our society, in our world society, is violence at all kinds of levels, and it it's personal violence, but it's also random violence. We see these images that are pretty disturbing. For example, there was a white kid. It showed up at a friend's party. Black kid, teenagers, and for some reason, even though they were friends, they killed him. They stomped him to death. Their friend, and it's like, what is going on? And we're seeing groups of people attacking other groups of people. From obviously we're looking at wars like Hamas, but then you have Sudan, and then you have so many different groups of people really giving each other a very hard time. The Syrian civil war, there's 250,000 deaths. Obviously, we have the war in Gaza, which will probably go close to 30,000 deaths by the time it's done. The Yemen civil war, 150,000 deaths. Sudan, 15,000, but part of a larger conflict. The Tigray War in Ethiopia, which probably most people haven't heard about. It's gone for 3 years. It's somewhere between 80 and 600,000 people. Obviously, the Iraqi war, where there was 500,000 to 200 million deaths after the U.S. invaded. So it just goes on and on. This is not, it's kind of part of the energy of the world, and it is truly worldwide. I mean, we don't have to forget the kind of prisoner camps in China and organ transplants, which really boggles my mind that they're doing that on live people. And it's like, what happened? And I know that we haven't been this is probably the whole century has been the most barbaric century that we've had in a long time. And it's like, now, one of the things that comes to my mind is that it has to get worse before better. And I think I'm not sure if we can get too much worse than what's going on, but there'll be a turning around. But what is this violence about? And one of the things that I can look at most clearly, and I can talk about in the Western world and the American society, is the disappearance of God and morality that comes from God in society. Because I just gave a list of physical violence. There's economic violence going on. There's clear political violence going on. We don't have to look too far. We look at Washington and see what's going on. And I'm not trying to make it. I'm not going to mention names because it doesn't. I don't want to make it political in that way. We're really not talking about left, right, or Republicans and Democrats. We're talking about humanity. That's what we're talking about in a worldwide issue. And so I'm looking at the absence of God being removed, the absence of morality, the absence of compassion, the absence of love, the absence of brother and sisterhood. It's like all seems to be kind of disappearing. It's like, whoa, what's going on? And so these are kind of questions that I'm certainly, looking at and trying to make sense out of the craziness. And, there are different levels that we can make sense of, okay? When the leaders break the rules and act immorally, and that's clearly what's happening, then you get the masses, the people, copying them. So yes, you have your political leaders acting immorally, but then you go to the street, and that's following right there. When we throw away rules, morality, any sense of human contact, of having meaning, that's what we're seeing on the streets. Clearly on the streets of the bigger cities, New York and Chicago and LA, but really around the world in different ways. And we have to, there's also a fractionizing into tribes. So there's tribes, and the tribes, instead of seeing the oneness, the tribes go against each other. And we can say politically divide and conquer. And therefore, there's so much trouble you need to bring in a new world dictatorship to control and stop the peace, stop the violence so we can have peace. But it never works that way. It's, oh, yeah, give us the control and we'll bring you peace. But that peace is always short-lived. And then, because from that comes dictatorship, and from dictatorship comes the oppression of people on every level. So that's not really going to be a solution, but that's a direction we're being pointed towards. Okay, so that is what we're talking about. Then we're looking at violence. So all this is going on. It's like, wow. And so we're trying to take a look. So there's personal violence, relationships are having more difficulty, there's more violence in relationships, there's more suicides, there's more depression, and there's like a fragmentation. And I'm speaking a little bit more in the Western society, rather than kind of Eastern. But it's happening. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Okay? It's clearly happening. It's clearly going through its cycle into some level of collapse. Some people have talked about cycles of societies, and the U.S. is kind of at the end of its cycle of 250 years, but it's even longer than that. And great empires tend to last about 240 years. And so there's a cycle ending there. And the cycles usually end with some violence. But perhaps there's more going on. Perhaps there's, at a more metaphysical level, we're talking about more demonic energies entering into like a demonic portal, as some spiritual people have talked about, metaphysical people have talked about, into third dimensional, activating more of that violence because they live off that violence. Connected with that is the use of increased use of drugs, increased use of alcohol. It's all kind of connected in here. And sexual immorality. Those are all connected with, let's say, a little bit more demonic activities, accentuating those type of things. So that's what we're looking at. Now the question is what to do. Well, we could just look at it, but that doesn't, we have to recognize it. That's the first step. We have to recognize something's wrong. We look at Washington, and there are many people who are saying something's really wrong. But you know what? There's a whole lot of people that also say it's fine. It's what's going on is fine. What's the problem here? And it's almost different polls, but maybe it's 50-50, of how people are looking at it. That's still a lot. But the point is, recognizing it is the first step. And then the second step is, in essence, the outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And so we need to look at, okay, what's going on in our inner world? And we are programmed from the outer world, all the videos and entertainment world. You look at there's just a lot of violence and satanic in Hollywood. There's definitely a satanic edge to things that didn't used to be there. Okay, and it's pretty blatant, and nobody seems to be making a statement about it. So we have that going on. But then it starts to internalize. That's why we start to have that personal violence that's going on, and internal violence, and suicide, and that kind of thing. So part of the healing of that is to start helping people access the inner light of who we are. Now, how do you do that? I can, say that meditation is a very, very, very important thing to that. But really, I'm going to just talk about the 6 foundations here. The first foundation is eating in a way that creates a quiet and peaceful mind and body. And the most powerful diet for doing it is a vegan and even better, a live food diet. And organic, because foods that are organic, they have a lot of pesticides, herbicides, they actually agitate the mind. Okay? And second is doing some sort of body movement, yoga, tai chi, qigong, reiki, energies that create a more peaceful energetic for the person. Third is service and charity, where our hearts can touch our neighbors' hearts. Fourth, if people are ready, working with spiritual teachers or spiritual groups that support non-violent, but peaceful. I'm going to use that as a better term. Peaceful ways of living. And fifth is really meditation and repeating the name of God. Those are really, really important things. And the sixth is kind of adjunct to that is, again, repeating the name of God quietly. And it keeps, throughout the day, it keeps reminding you of the truth. And then we have the sevenfold peace, which is peace of the body, which we did, peace with the mind, meditation, peace with the family, which is an emphasis on peace in relationship, creating intimacy in relationship. And then peace with the community. And that's community service, people working together, bringing the collective into harmony. And then we have peace with all cultures. Peace with the human culture, the animal, four-legged culture that communicates but doesn't necessarily have long-term writing history. Peace with the plant world, first the animal world, amphibian world, and then the plant world, and peace with the living planet. So in Native American, we call Om Takiwasa. Okay, two of my relations, nowhere connected to all of those. And then we're having what I call spiritual ecology, peace with the living planet more actively. And then finally, peace with God. Now, when we emphasize all those in our lives, it begins to shift our consciousness. I even wrote a book called The Sevenfold Peace. But it starts from the inner peace, and then it moves outer. So that doesn't exclude us doing peaceful things in the outer world while we're working on creating the inner peace. But those are the things that really do make a difference. That's what we're talking about. And so it's somewhat heroic to stand up for the truth and do it in a way of inner peace. which does result in an outer peace. So that's what's being asked. That's what really needs to happen here. And the only way it's going to happen is for each one of us to take the responsibility to create our own inner peace. I just kind of outlined, the generic way, the 6 foundations, to begin to do that. Obviously, some people have spiritual paths that they choose to go on. This is like the basics of any spiritual path, pretty much. So that's what's being asked for us. This is a challenge. And we as a world society are being, let's say, stressed in a potentially, I will say potentially, because other people are being overwhelmed, in a really good way, potentially, to wake up and begin developing the 6 foundations, 7-fold peace in our own lives. That's what's being asked. Okay, now, just in closing, I just want to mention that we have a world peace meditation on every Sunday night at starting at 6:20 Israel time, 6:20 p.m. worldpeacemeditation.net. That's something everybody can join. We know it works. We know when people meditate together at the same time, we shift the world consciousness. That's what's going on. That's what we can do. That's what happens. So we have that option. We have an option to just be at peace with ourselves. We have the option to be at peace with our partners, our intimate partners, and make every effort. Valentine's Day is coming up. So peace with our partners is good. Good thing. Okay? And making those simple and active steps is the kind of preconditions for going to the next layers. It's something that has to develop over time as we're attempting to reverse that. So I invite you to come to the World Peace Meditation, as you already saw. I personally have programs. You can go to drcousens.com and see the different programs. But here we are on Monday night, and then we have programs in different places on Wednesday evenings at European hour, Brazilian kind of hour, Essene hour. There's a lot there, plus my Thursday programs, which is Spiritual Nutrition Q&A at 5:30 to 6:30, and also spiritual teachings and meditation from 7 to 8:30. Now, in these meditations, I also focus on helping people awaken the spiritual energy called the Kundalini, or in biblical terms, the Ruach HaKodesh. So we have, real awakening energies happening, and they naturally bring peace. Okay, they naturally bring peace, and that's a thing to really consider. And so I invite you to come to all those. I invite you to do as many inner peace activities as you can in your life, and know how important it is to make time. And then basically we walk as a blessing to the world. So in closing, may everybody walk as a blessing to the world. A blessing of peace, a blessing of oneness, and a blessing of one to the world. Peace be with you.